Long ago, in the vast and powerful Persian Empire, there lived a young Jewish woman named Esther. She was orphaned at a young age and raised by her cousin Mordecai, who loved her like a daughter. Though her people lived far from their homeland, they remained faithful to the God of Israel. At that time, King Xerxes, also called Ahasuerus, ruled the empire. One day, during a lavish feast with nobles and officials, he commanded his queen, Vashti, to appear before his guests to show off her beauty. But Vashti refused. The king was furious. On the advice of his counselors, he removed her from her royal position and began a search for a new queen. All across the empire, beautiful young women were brought to the palace. Among them was Esther. She was kind, wise, and graceful. And though she kept her Jewish identity hidden, she quickly found favor with everyone she met. In time, King Xerxes chose Esther to be his new queen, placing a crown upon her head. Meanwhile, Mordecai remained near the palace gates, watching over Esther from a distance. One day, he overheard two palace guards plotting to assassinate the king. Mordecai quickly warned Esther, who reported it to the king. The plot was stopped, and the event was recorded in the royal chronicles. But Mordecai received no reward yet. Sometime later, a man named Haman rose to power. He was arrogant and cruel, and the king made him second in command. Haman demanded that all people bow before him, but Mordecai refused, saying he would bow only to God. This enraged Haman. When he discovered Mordecai was a Jew, he plotted to destroy all Jews across the empire. Haman went to King Xerxes with a lie, saying, "There are certain people scattered among your provinces who do not obey your laws. It would be best to get rid of them." The king, unaware that his own queen was one of them, agreed. A decree was issued. On a set day, all Jews would be killed. When Mordecai heard the decree, he tore his clothes, covered himself in ashes, and mourned in the streets. He sent word to Esther, begging her to go before the king and plead for her people. But Esther was afraid. In Persian law, no one could approach the king without being summoned. To do so could mean death, unless the king extended his golden scepter. Mordecai responded with words that shook Esther's heart. "Do not think you will escape because you are in the palace. If you remain silent, help will come from another place. But who knows? Perhaps you were made queen for such a time as this." Esther made a bold decision. She replied, "Gather all the Jews. Fast for 3 days. I will go to the king, and if I perish, I perish." On the third day, Esther dressed in her royal robes and stood in the inner court of the palace. The king saw her and was pleased. He extended the golden scepter and welcomed her. "What is your request, Queen Esther?" he asked. "Even up to half the kingdom, it shall be yours." Esther invited the king and Haman to a banquet. At the banquet, she asked them to return the next day for another. Haman was thrilled until he saw Mordecai again, still refusing to bow. Furious, Haman built a gallows to hang Mordecai. That night, the king couldn't sleep. He ordered the royal records to be read to him. There, he discovered that Mordecai had saved his life but had never been honored. Just then, Haman entered to ask for Mordecai's execution. Before he could speak, the king asked, "What should be done for the man the king wants to honor?" Thinking the king meant him, Haman replied, "He should be dressed in royal robes, placed on the king's horse, and paraded through the city." "Excellent," said the king. "Go and do this for Mordecai the Jew." Haman was humiliated, forced to honor the man he hated. At the second banquet, the king once again asked Esther what she desired. With courage, she said, "O king, spare my life and the lives of my people. We have been sold to be destroyed, killed, and annihilated." The king was shocked. Who was the man who would do such a thing? Esther turned to Haman and said, "This wicked man is our enemy." The king, furious, stepped out into the garden. Haman fell at Esther's feet, begging for mercy. But the king returned and saw him in desperation. "Will he even assault the queen in my presence?" he roared. That day, Haman was executed on the very gallows he had built for Mordecai. The king promoted Mordecai to Haman's position and gave him his signet ring. Esther pleaded with the king to save her people, but the laws of Persia could not be reversed. However, the king allowed Mordecai and Esther to issue a new decree. The Jews could defend themselves against their enemies. The king's edict to slaughter the Jews was nullified by allowing them to defend themselves, which they did with vigor and victory. This great deliverance led to the establishment of the Feast of Purim, where the Jews from then until now celebrate with joy, feasting, the exchange of gifts, and acts of charity, commemorating the hand of God in their salvation. The lesson from a story of Purim is that God is able to turn the plans meant for harm into blessings, demonstrating his sovereign power and providential care.